Swipe versus Gripe on a Friday. I want to know from Swipe, why do the Nuggets need a trade? Why do they have to do a trade? Plus, we're going to talk about Jokic's frustration if it's okay for the best player to freak out all the time. And we'll preview the Cavs and the Pistons games this weekend. All that and more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day, being with us Monday through Friday, being an everydayer, as we like to call them, and hanging out with us all throughout the week, whether you're on podcast or joining us at youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. Make sure to go like and subscribe. Hope your holidays were safe and healthy and happy, and that you guys were able to enjoy them if you celebrated. If you didn't, hope you had a nice week. On today's show, we're going to talk about the Cavs and the Pistons games and what we expect from those games from this inconsistent Nuggets team. We're going to talk about Jokic's frustration and how evident it's been and whether that's a problem, if that's a good thing, if it's understandable, and all that. Plus, we'll start today with a talk about this question of why Denver needs a trade. Do want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here for some teams, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Matt Moore. I'm joined by Swipe. Swipe is amazing. Swipe looks awesome today. Swipe dresses better than me. That's absolutely true. He looks great today. Hope your holiday was great, man.
Yeah, it's been good. Matt, did you get anything that you really wanted this year?
I got a massage gun because my calf keeps tightening up every single time that I try and run. Like every time my calf.
You know what's funny?
Yeah.
I've caught on to your shtick, Matt. You know what that is?
Okay, yeah, I know what his shtick is.
I've never seen you and Aaron Gordon in the same room together. Matt, are you telling me that at night for NBA games you turn in Aaron Gordon, and then during the day you turn into a journalist/writer?
I'm like Wolfman. I just like,
yeah, you're Wolfman. Aaron Gordon becomes your preeminent version physically, and then you turn into like this world acclaimed journalist during the day. No, well, I get it. Now,
if I had Aaron Gordon's money, I wouldn't dress like this. So I want to ask you this question because you've said that things of this nature consistently. Like you've been hammering on, why does Jokic not have another All-Star with him? Why does he not have another All-NBA player with him? Why is this guy the only guy that's like a star level on the team? Something's got to give. Something's got to get done. There's a move coming. All this kind of things. And I just wrote about this on Denver Dig about a Substack you can find in my profile look, the problem with this team is their inconsistency, that they have one of the best net ratings and records versus top 10 teams in net rating. They have one of the worst versus bottom 10, and they're fine versus middling. Like they are maddeningly inconsistent. Yeah. And to me, that's a problem with chemistry. And to me, that's a problem with like skill variability and lineup building. And so I know that you and Ryan talked about Ryan's little Zach LaVine idea yesterday. And I'm just curious, like, how does a trade, especially for one player in Zach LaVine, how is that going to fix that? Is it going to be awesome to have another like guy that can go for 40 next to Yoke? Sure, but like, does that fix the problems here?
Matt Moore, wonderful Matt Moore, brilliant Matt Moore, good friend Matt Moore. I think that if you're being honest, which you're always honest, if you just evaluate the circumstances surrounding Joker's reign in Denver, we will both agree that it's an abnormality in terms of what he's had to work with relative to other players of his peer status in all-time NBA history. Would you agree to that?
Boy.
Except maybe Hakeem. Let's say Hakeem, other than Hakeem.
So let's, because you like to do the Giannis comps a lot. Like you have the same respect for Giannis, I think, that I do. Do you think that Jamal Murray, over the course of, let's say, the regular seasons in 2019-20, 22-23, and 23-24, across those seasons, do you think that Chris Middleton is absolutely better than what Jamal Murray was in those years?
Okay. No, not Jamal. Dame Dame's the question. No.
Dame for sure, right?
Yeah.
And I would even argue like Dame at this point in his career is probably a little bit different, but he's having this year.
He's having a much better year than he did last year.
Right? He's so good this year in part, I think, because he's given up on trying to get to Miami, so he can see certain people. So I think that to me is kind of the question is, and even if I grant you the premise, I think my problem is I don't know that with how the CBA is built right now, I don't think we're going to see that again. Like, I don't know
which part.
I don't think
like a Dame trade.
So I think the big key, like if you look at the Bucks, right, it's Giannis and Dame, and then Chris, who like Chris has been a borderline All NBA player at points in the past, and has been, I believe, an All-Star before in his past.
Yes.
Brooks a little bit different, right? Because like Brooke was an All-Star in Brooklyn, but that was like a decade ago, and now he's like a role player for sure.
Yeah.
Like Brooke and Aaron Gordon, I think are pretty approximate players. So like the kind of question is just like, can you really have these cores of like these multiple kind of all-star level talents around them? Is kind of my question with where the CBA is at.
See, I personally think that the engine for success in this NBA is having a preeminent all-star, and I think players that you can have two, but I think you need to have players of at least a similar kind of archetype and skill level. Like, I think my best example is what the Celtics have done and what the Cavaliers have replicated. I think the Celtics have built a team that has 5 ball handlers that can all create, shoot, dribble, and defend. I would say that you probably agree with that in large part. And right. I think the Nuggets, they only have one of those players that can dribble, shoot, create, and pass. And I think in this NBA, that's a problem. I think the Thunder, they're another team that has 5 players: dribble, shoot, create, pass, and defend, especially. And again, okay. I'm not saying at the highest level, but I'm saying Casey Wallace, obviously SGA, J-Dub, depending on how you feel about like Aaron Wiggins and apparently out of nowhere they picked up AJ Mitchell or out of nowhere. Yep. I think like it's just that the Nuggets are missing some things that I think if Joker had around him, I think the team would just functionally be better. But I actually think this with my LaVine thing, the reason why I've moved closer to this route with LaVine, I don't think I don't think it's going to be just one player. By the way, I think I get another player back in the deal. Ideally, that would be it. I think the Nuggets, they just proven they need more players that can create off the dribble and shoot and that can play on ball. And then also too, I do think somebody that can help stabilize the second unit. I think that's kind of where I'm coming from at this point. The Nuggets are just lacking options. And I love MPJ. Everybody knows how I feel about MPJ. But I think in particular with MPJ, we saw versus the Suns, he just doesn't have the ability yet, or maybe ever, to be able to create space versus guards or wings that can get up in the spot.
Right.
And I think when you're in this era and at this version of Jamal, again, Matt, if Jamal was Jamal 23, I don't think this would be much of a discussion. I think you would probably agree with that. But I don't know if we're getting that from Jamal again, because I genuinely don't know if Jamal's body's going to be able to respond to get that.
So your point about dribble, shoot, pass is Jamal can't do that right now because he can't drive because he doesn't have the explosion. I would say, like, look, he had 5 great games in a row, and then he had a bad one on Christmas. Like, I'm just not willing to be like.
But I don't do that though. I'm taking everything in the sample size from April to now, though. To be fair,
that's fair. But it's like if we know that he was this before, and then he had a long stretch where he wasn't, and then he had a good stretch where he turned a corner, and like maybe you're right, and the sample will prove out that he's going to go back to what he's been the last, since late in the season last year, and maybe he's just shot. I'm not ruling it out. I'm just also not willing to be like, they do not have that guy. It's like, well, they don't have that guy right now. I don't know if Jamal's going to get back
Matt,
there.
I think
also, hang on. I also want to say Aaron can shoot, pass, and dribble.
He can't shoot. He's not a pull-up shooting guard. Yeah, but that's not the same function though. And he's also not a playmaking guard either. Like there's two different kinds of
playmaker than a lot of guards.
No, but that's fine. But Matt, he's also functionally not going to operate in a role at the same level as some of these other players will, because it's just many different things. But again, Matt, I think that's the point. I think what I'm out on is just waiting until Joker continues to get more and more frustrated, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then we're just going to wait until next summer because, we just feel like that's just the best interest for whatever. I personally just don't think that is where they're headed right now, given where everything is with the team And I ultimately think too, just things that we're kind of seeing and hearing, I think we're pushing at the point where I don't think Joker is willing to let them wait that long either.
Well, let's talk about Joker's frustration. We'll do that next. And we'll get into a little bit more of the dynamics of these things. I will say, I agree with you that you shouldn't wait. Joker's too good for you to wait. And to me, a lot of this is they plan for a patient approach, thinking that they were good enough, and they aren't. And so they have to shift that patient approach. And that's the cause of a lot of tension, I think. Up next, we'll talk about Joker's frustration and what that means for the Nuggets. We'll do that up next here on Locked On Nuggets. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial flavors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. I'm back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us here on a Friday. Chat's bumping. If you want to join us at youtube.com/Locked On Nuggets, just go subscribe and turn on notifications. You can join us for all the live shows that we do. We will have a live show after the Cavaliers game on Friday night, which we'll talk about in the...
And this is also not... sometimes you frame these conversations, Matt, swipe versus gripe. It's swipe and gripe. We're both historians of this game. We both appreciate history.
I did swipe versus gripe because I like the fact that you and I are... See, here's the thing. There's too many podcasts are just like, I agree. And that you said it's just two people agreeing on the same viewpoints. And I like the fact that you and I go up against each other. Like, I think that's a healthy debate. Like, you are knowledgeable. You have a wide breadth of knowledge about the NBA and the history of the game. You think about things on a deep level. And I appreciate going head to head with you. I like it.
1,000%.
So here's one. Joker needs to chill out. Joker needs to chill out. I'm sorry. Like, I don't mind him being frustrated. I get it. But there's also this level where we're just like, well, can you blame the guy? And I'm like, that's not what we're asking here. Like, we're not asking, like, I'm not asking, is Joker right to be frustrated? Of course he's right to be frustrated. Look at this team. Look at this team around him. Look at them lose to the Blazers. Look at the numbers that he's put up. Look at what they've done. They lost to the Wizards. I wrote about this today, about the inconsistency is what drives him nuts. That's why I don't think the trade is that. I don't think Joker looks around and is like, these are the guys you've given me. I don't think Joker thinks about basketball that way. I think he looks at these guys and are like, none of these guys are playing the right way. None of these guys are playing with the right level of energy and execution. None of these guys are playing the way that you play winning basketball. And I'm out here having to do all of this in order to keep us afloat because these guys won't play that way. Not because of how talented they are, but because of how those guys are playing. And I think that's his big frustration.
I think saying Jokic needs to chill out in year 10 when he's never done this is hilarious to me, given that I can't name another player, literally can't name another player that hasn't pressed the big red button, the big red organizational button by this point of his caliber. He's literally the single anomaly you can name that has not done that. So that's what doesn't.
Whoa.
He hasn't. And again, functionally, even San Antonio with Duncan, they didn't go back to back ever. Never went back to back. But they also didn't have these kind of dysfunctional issues within in disagreements, but also on court performance. They were a 50-win team every single year. They fought for playoff contention every single year. They fought to win the West every single year. And then the front office also, they loaded up Tony Parker, loaded up Manu Ginobili, and then they got a host of role players over the course of a 12-year period, basically from 2003 to 2014, that all fit the system and did what they needed to do. And so Duncan never had to press that button, never had to press it, because the talent was constantly coming in and out, and the coaching was also meeting the task of what was being requested of them. I'm not saying that I'm alone. I think Malone's really good at the job, but I think functionally, I think this whole idea that Joker is at this point after what he went through last year, and then also too bad, I think that Joker sees this in the context of 23. When I finally got it, what I needed, we swept through the playoffs. 22, he did it by himself because nobody was available. 21, he basically did it by himself, and MPJ was hurt also in the playoffs. Murray wasn't there, and he got swept out of the second round. Everybody made fun of him for it, and then he lost in the first round the next year. And then the year after he wins a championship, if Jamal Murray's healthy, personally, Matt, they probably win the title again. But because of injuries and other things around it, and if Jamal Murray didn't have it, Porter didn't have anything going, had 7 points in that game. And so he's consistently saying that if I have people that are meeting this level of play, I can beat anybody. But I think the problem is he's had to deal with more adversity on that front by having inconsistency with the players around him that are also getting paid similar contracts than more than anybody else that I can genuinely think of. And again, maybe Hakeem's the anomaly. Hakeem made it in 86, and then they didn't make it back to what, 94? The next time they made it back? And then Jordan wasn't in the league. There was no Jordan. So even if Michael Jordan was in the league, we could have a whole different conversation about Hakeem. And I'm saying that I just think that what's being asked of him has already been so widely different. Even Kobe was ready to press the eject button in Chicago in 2004, Matt. You remember that?
So if you're looking for the historical comps, I think there are more, but the problem is just like you can't get to Joker's level. Like there are guys that were like all-timers that didn't have enough talent around them, and they would go through these dips. Dirk Nowitzki would be one I would suggest. I'm not trying to compare Dirk to Joker. I know how much better Joker is, but Dirk was an absolutely incredible player and an MVP. And then he was in the woods from 2008 to 2011, and then they won the title because they put the right two pieces around him. The other thing I would say here is you're right, except I'm a little bit confused on this point, Swipe. You're just like, no one has ever had to put up with this. God, man, you just said it. They would have won the title last year if Jamal doesn't get hurt. They made the second round, game 7 at home, up 20. They won 50 games last year. They won 57. They tied a franchise record last year in wins. They're still on pace for them to likely be a 50-plus win team.
Sure.
Like, so
we're not talking about regular seasons here anymore.
Sure. But you mentioned the Spurs, and like every year it's a 50 win. So that's kind of my question here is just like, what is the evidence that they are absolutely not going to be there by the end?
If Jamal's like this, they're absolutely not going to be there. I can factually tell you that.
If he's
they're absolutely not making it to the West.
If he's like he was on Wednesday, what if he's like he was before?
Well, Matt, again, I'm doing the entire season. I don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to tell you. Like, if you want to use a 5-game sample size when there's 20 other games to use, then sure, you can do that if you want. But I can also point to after he got back from that injury, he had the 5-game run leading into the playoffs. He had the calf injury versus the Lakers, which he valiantly fought through. He had 23 and 7 in that series on worse efficiency than you would ever see from Jamal normally at this stage. And then in the next round, averaged 18 points a game on 40% from the field or whatever else it was. He had 3 really good games in that series, and they won basically 2 of those games as well. So I'm saying that like that's the issue. It's like this team has now come down to, is Jamal Murray going to be able to raise his level of play to the level it needs to be at, or are we just going to wait another 82, hope it gets there, and then if it doesn't, then what?
Well, let's say that you're right, and Joker's completely justified, and it's ridiculous, and what a failure, and oh my God, this team sucks so bad. This team is abysmal was a word that you used the other day, and all of these things. Does that change the fact that you should probably not be expressing these things so much on the court because it's probably bad for team chemistry and you need to lead by example? Like, does that change that?
On court stuff, I don't know. I mean, I've seen LeBron do it respectfully, and worse than that.
I agree. So, do we think that that's great?
No, I mean, so you feel like the frustrations I'm seeing from him are, personally, I've seen some of that stuff before. Like when Michael Porter Jr., for instance, he had a mismatch on Josh Okogie, whoever it was. Porter takes that crazy dribble and throws the ball to the middle of the court. It's turnover. Joker like screams, going down the court, like, what are we doing type thing. I mean, yeah, that stuff happens. Like players do that. But yeah. I think at some point in time, with Joker in particular, it just gets to this point where it starts bubbling. And I think that's where we are now. I think it's starting to bubble. And I think that with players that are like this, it just gets to this point. He's about to be 30 in February. I think he just has felt this burden for several years now. And this is a culmination of like another iteration of
several years.
Yes, he did. Because I think that's what I'm saying. I think sometimes like you're asking me about why he's frustrated. I think he views the playoffs in 21 and in 22 as prime examples of what he did when he was basically by himself the narrative that then surrounded him in particular post those runs, and then even last year, what he did in both of those series, not coming out of it, losing in the second round. You know, he wants to win another championship. And then now this year, I think he's seeing very similar things that happened to him last year in the playoffs. Once you get to the end of the year, about problem solving and being able to perform versus other people. So that's all I'm saying. Like, this is not about like, I hope I'm trying to put this all in context. I'm saying that the trade that is on the table that they've been looking at, I think that solves a multitude of issues. So it's not just Joker. I think even the non-Jokic minutes, the bench minutes, having another player that can be a floor rager without having a guaranteed number one option on the court with him. That's what Zach LaVine's been doing for a number of years. So I think all of that put together is kind of where we are at this point.
I'm sorry, the NBA is hard. I don't know. I think this is a little ridiculous to be like, this is like
what's ridiculous? What's ridiculous? What's ridiculous?
The most like, you act like he has the most burden on him of any player in the league, and a lot of these guys have been great players on sub 500 teams.
Which ones
haven't won a title? Haven't won a playoff series?
Which players are you speaking about?
Won?
Which players are you speaking about? Has
Dame? How about Dame?
So that's what I'm saying. We're not. Those aren't his contemporaries, though. Respectfully, Matt. And Giannis is also. I think it's his contemporary. And what has directly happened, Giannis has asked for things to be done to that team twice over. And they've happened. Like, he asked for Drew in 2021. They got him. They did what they had to do. They got Drew Holiday. They made their changes. They won the title. And then they asked for Dame. We needed another option. He wouldn't sign the extension on the contract, remember? And then he also said, I don't know if this organization is committed to winning just as much as I am. And then they got Dame. I'm saying that's typically what happens.
They also, by the way, they also changed coaches at his direction and got the guy he preferred.
Sure, but you understand what I'm saying. Then I'm not saying Joker should do that. I'm saying everybody else that's in his contemporary department. That's typically what happens. That's what I'm saying. That's it. So I think you're saying that like no one else. As bad
as I knew things could get at 2 years after winning the first NBA title in franchise history, the overreaction and recency bias is even worse. Up next, we'll talk about the Cavaliers and the Detroit Pistons games and how those look for the Denver Nuggets. I've got predictions on those games. I'm cruising towards the 5-game record that I was talked about with Ryan. We'll get Swipe's thoughts on it next here on Locked On Nuggets. The NFL playoffs are almost here for some teams, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. You can bet on such great players like Jaden Daniels, the offensive rookie of the year for the NFL. You can bet on the Los Angeles Chargers, who made the playoffs and look like they could really cause some mayhem. Or you could bet on other teams if you wanted to. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, FanDuel's got bets on which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, team totals. Great way to bet on some of these things. I think the unders in Broncos games have been absolutely electric. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. There's so much like in the chat. They're always like, can we talk about the people that are to blame? Guys, like, we are in game 29 of an 82 game schedule. When we get through it, like, you could do the whole blame thing. But a lot of it's like, you got to like talk about what's going on in the right now. Because I'll tell you just up front, Calvin Booth's not getting fired tomorrow. It's not happening. Like, it doesn't matter how much you scream on the YouTube comments, which I love you doing at youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. Please continue to do so. But like, no matter how much you do that, they're not going to fire a GM mid-season. So it's like, you can talk about this and you can have your feelings, and it's good to have those feelings, and you're right to have those feelings as fans. But being like, can we talk about, like, we should talk about things in the moment, like the game versus the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight. Swipa, they're going to win one versus the Cavs or Pistons on this home back-to-back. I think they're going to beat the Cavaliers and then lose to the Pistons.
Sure. Yeah. I think I told Ryan, I think they're going to win both of them. And then the vibes are going to be back high. And they'll be 18-12. And then we'll be right back here again. Man, this team is great. Look at Jamal. What a game. What a game. What a game. Yeah, I think they're going to win both of them. Just for vibes.
I don't think that they're consistent enough. Like, that's the thing. Is like, they're absolutely the kind of team that beats the Cavaliers at home and then loses to the Pistons the following night.
The Pistons are a good team. They have to show up, so they can't do what they did to Blazers.
That comeback versus the Kings last night was so great. I love that Pistons team, but like the bad stuff from the Pistons is really bad.
How's it feel that Cade Cunningham has lapped Tyrese Halliburton? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sad. Like, I don't know what happened to Tyrese. I really don't. Like, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
I don't have an explanation for it. Pacers played well last night versus the Thunder. That was a really fun game. But yeah, look, I don't have any explanation for Tyrese. Like, there's a guy that I saw for literally 18 months, and then there's the guy that's shown up this year, and I don't know what to make of it. I really
basically
don't.
all the 24, he's been a different player for the most part, inconsistently. I think
he had absolutely some big moments in the playoffs. His team did make the conference finals. Like, he had some big moments.
Well, yeah, they did make the conference finals in the Eastern Conference. I will say that
he beat a 50-win team. I know some other players that haven't done that.
Oh, wait, you beat a 49-win team on a 72-win pace? Oh, man, what's that, 56 wins? Do the math, casual. So this is what I'll say, Matt. Matt, first off, you're not going to run from what you just did in the second segment. The chat knows they're all woke, okay? Their eyes are open. You can't cover their eyes with a veil anymore. You, sir, are a hypocrite, okay? Because you have always talked about history and what it means, and you are now throwing away history. You're saying, oh, this history doesn't matter because this makes my feelings hurt, so let's take this part of history that's tragic to Swiper, throw that away, and only put the history in the books that Matt really likes. That's positive feelings about Matt and all that other stuff. I think that you're being ridiculous. I think that Nikola Jokic should absolutely be frustrated, and I think you also agree that what he's gone through is also an anomaly relative to what his other peers have done. But I will say, I think the team is going to figure some things out. That's the funny thing about this team, Matt. They could very well win the title this year. We both agree with that. They could very well win the title.
The reason I like this conversation actually about Jokic's behavior is because the question is fundamentally, if you are justified, should you always do an action that is unjust?
No, of course not. As a curator of nonviolence, absolutely not. 1,000%.
Right. So like that's my kind of like at the core of all this is you could say he's absolutely justified because like I'm always of this opinion. There's somebody in my life who is of the mindset of it doesn't matter how rude I am if I'm honest. And I just fundamentally disagree with that. Like there's absolutely no reason to be so honest and forthcoming in the event that you cause harm to other people. Like if it's unnecessary to do so. If it's necessary, then that's a different question. If Jokic's complaining and freaking out was necessary, then maybe that's the argument here is like, if he doesn't freak out, what's going to get Calvin to get off of his absolute insistence that Jalen Pickett, who had a great game the other night.
Or even the Russell Westbrook thing, if he doesn't say something, he's not on the team.
Right. Hunter Tyson, all these other things. Like what if he doesn't make his feelings known, will these front offices take him for granted and just keep up with the path? And like that's a fair argument, right?
Do you think this team would have been functionally worse this year if Russ wasn't on the team?
Yeah. Here's the thing. I have to know where that money gets allocated. Does that make sense? $3
million? Yeah.
I'm serious because like that's a roster spot. Like if that goes to, let's say it's like DeLon Wright hasn't had a good season. Let's say it gone to DeLon Wright. Maybe it's worse. But if it goes to like if Tyus Jones had chosen the Nuggets for $3 million versus the Suns for I think considerably more, how does that look? Probably better, right? So it's like how does that resource get allocated if it's not Russ? It's not just the money, it's the minutes and the usage. I have to know what you're doing with it.
Oh, I got you.
I don't get Matt, all those ifs. If Jamal this or that, he is not. Get over it. I don't know what to tell you guys. If you want to talk about history, we have a longer history of Jamal's career than the stretch that you guys are focused on. I do not like that I'm being forced into a position to defend Jamal Murray, but you guys have lost your minds. Jamal is like not garbage. Maybe he's going to be like, maybe he's washed. That's possible because I've seen that happen to players. Like I sat down next to Ryan Blackburn before game 1 of the playoffs last year. And I said, I've been thinking about this question. I want to know your thoughts on it. Jamal's this playoff killer. Jamal's this legend. They banked on that. What happens if he's not? And Ryan, like you can imagine Ryan was like, and then like he wasn't, but he made the shots versus the Lakers. And then he wasn't versus the Wolves.
Well, didn't you also argue with Adam last year that Jamal doesn't need to be 23 Jamal for them to win the title?
I still don't. I still don't. I think there are ways to get the most out of this. If Jokic ball is all about making everybody better and getting contributions from everybody and playing
that
themselves,
is such a narrow view. That's not how it works. You gotta have Matt. You
one
too
minute.
smart.
You have a hard out.
No,
you got 1 minute.
I got 5 minutes. I can get there. I can get where I need to go. You got 5 minutes. Matt, you are too smart and too well-researched to pigeonhole yourself like that. That's why people are saying in the chat, oh, Swiper and Matt is contentious. No, it's not. I love Matt. Matt helped me to get into the business. Me and Matt are really good friends. We actually get along really well. Outside of basketball, we talk about a lot of stuff. The thing with Matt, I just don't let Matt slide. Ryan will let Matt slide. Adam will let Matt slide. You, on the other hand, I am not letting you slide. You are too smart to say something like that. Jokic ball, well, this, and that. LeBron needed Kyrie. LeBron is the GOAT. He needed Kyrie. Jordan is the GOAT. He needed Scotty, Horace Grant, Scottie Pippen, Phil Jackson in the triangle, John Paxson, Steve Kerr. He needed Bill Cartwright. They all had to make it work together. This whole Kobe needed Paul Gasol and Ron Artest and Trevor Ariza and Derek Fisher. That's what doesn't make sense. Tim Duncan needed Manu and Tony and David Robinson early on. But this idea that it's Joker can just make it work. It's Joker ball. That is ridiculous because you know that's not how it works to win at that level. You yourself are a historian. Stop it. Vernon Maxwell made up he did it in 94 and 95. Even in the last championship, you got an old Clyde Drexler who played good series in that run. Stop it. Sam Cassell and Robert Horry. Stop it. You don't believe that. Don't you even try to pigeonhole your brilliant brain into that position. No, thank you, sir. I rebuke it. Rebuke it in the name of all things truth in basketball. Stop it.
I think the reason I feel it's different is because he's not going up against the Warriors. If the Warriors existed now, I'd be like, yeah, you don't, unless you better load up and get this guy 3 superstars. You're not going to win. Like, you have to have an awesome team top to bottom. Like, those Warriors teams weren't just Clay and Steph and Dre and then KD later. It was like Iguodala and Sean Livingston, David West. And that's one of the things I've been thinking about a lot is just like, how do you get those guys? Because that to me, I think is what I think is missing from this team. Is that like, sure. I don't think they need Zach LaVine, and I don't think they need Jimmy Butler. I definitely don't think they need Jimmy Butler. I think they need David West. I think they need Andre Iguodala. I think they need Sean Livingston. I think they need Bruce Brown. I think they need KCP. I think they need veterans who you can win with, who do their jobs and do them at a high level. And to me, I don't think that this team, with how I've seen Nikola play, because part of it is like the 2021 and 22 runs, they were so devastated by the time that they got to Phoenix, and Phoenix was a really good team when they beat them, but they got past Portland. Like, they beat that team anyway without Jamal. And then 2022, they faced the Warriors. Yep. They faced the Warriors with a much better roster than what the Warriors have now, right? And so it's like, if you get the right sequences and you get the right teams, am I saying that they can beat the absolute best of the best? No, but I also don't know if you're going to face the best of the best. Like, I don't know. I don't know if you're going to play Boston in the finals. I don't know if you're going to play OKC in the conference finals. And so for me, it's like, I think you can do this without 23 Jamal. I think you can. Is it harder?
Do you think
Absolutely.
more like the Nets acquiring like 2 really like rough, rugged role players like Danielle Gafford and PJ Washington, if they got something like that on the roster? Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
And that to me is like the thought process. So that's like the whole thing here is the reason I'm skeptical on they need a trade is they got to fix the chemistry stuff and they got to get everybody on the same page. And then they need more veteran guys that help you bring everybody together. And it's not even really about the talent of the young guys. It's about what they're missing in the locker room. And that to me, I think and I'm not in there, and they would probably refute that because they'd be like, you're not in there, you don't know. But to me, like, that's what's missing.
Yeah.
That's Swipe versus Gripe for a Friday. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Make sure to follow Swipe. He's on every post-game show on his channel on YouTube and Twitter at SwipeCam. Make sure to check us out post-game. After I get back from the game tonight, after my drive home, we will do a live post-game show with Ryan Blackburn after the Cavaliers game, and we will get to one tomorrow night after the back-to-back versus the Pistons. Hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll see you guys again next time here on Locked On Nuggets. You're a mean man.